Hello students! Time to learn about mosaic tiling. We're going to start with a small wooden square that's going to be used as the base for our mosaic tiling. Let me take you through some things that we're going to use in order to glue our tiles on and the types of tiles that we have available. We have glass mirrors that are both just plain mirror and colored mirrors. I have bags of ceramic tile that you can find that are color coordinated, and they have a variety of different shapes and sizes within those color coordinated bags. Some of the tiles are ceramic, like this round one here, and others are glass, like this square one right here. You'll find these tiles in lots of different colors. Some other things that you will find are larger pieces of glass tile, such as these, larger pieces of more stone-looking ceramic tile, rocks, glass beads can also be used in ceramic tiling. I also have a very large box filled with large stained glass pieces that can be cut and mosaic tiled onto your piece as well. As you saw from the video that you watched prior to this one, showing you all about Isaiah Zager's work, you really can mosaic tile just about anything. It doesn't have to be glass or tile. You can mosaic bottles or old bike parts onto your tiles as well. Obviously these tiles are small and you're not going to be able to mosaic tile a bottle on here, but if you're thinking more three-dimensionally, especially for those of you who are also taking 3D design, that's something you could think about as you continue to work through mosaic tiling. There's a couple things you need to know. Number one, we're going to be using something called tile nippers to cut our tiles. This is what a tile nipper looks like. This one is made specifically for ceramic tile, and this one does a little bit better with the glass and cutting a straight flat line. You will not be able to cut the ceramic tile with the one with the red handles. You'll have to use this nipper to do that. When you're cutting tile, there is always a chance of a piece flying and hitting you in the eye. So if you're not a person who wears glasses, you need to make sure you have some safety goggles on while you're doing this. Okay, another thing you're going to need is some of this Well-Bond glue. This is what we're going to use to take the tiles and actually glue them onto our piece of wood. And once we have all of our tiles glued on, I'm going to show you how you lay grout, or like it's almost like cement, into those areas between your tiles to finish off your finalized mosaic tile. Piece, I want you to think very non-objective. I don't want you to focus too much on trying to create imagery into this tile. Again, this is experimentation, and I want you to just work through the process. With that said though, I do want you to try cutting the tiles and not just laying some sort of all squares on here. Think about creating some sort of color pattern or theme, or creating some sort of repeating shapes to create a non-objective that is more than just random, but there is some sort of design or thought put into where you're laying. How to cut the tiles first. If you peek through, I have tons of different bags, tons of different types of tiles with textures and different patterns that you can use on your mosaic tile. Let me show you how to cut this. These are the tile nippers. You squeeze them just like you would a pair of pliers. Okay. You're going to hold your piece of glass or your ceramic tile, and you're simply going to clamp down. And you could see that kind of flew a little bit. That's why we're definitely going to be wearing goggles while we do this. Okay. If we try to use these, you're going to get a little bit more control. Okay, but there isn't a lot of precision to this. Just keep that in mind when you're cutting. Okay. So that is the basics of cutting. That's a piece of stained glass. Let me show you with a tile. Maybe I wanted to cut this piece same thing. Take the tile nippers, put the tile nippers between the blades. Make sure your finger is free of any of the blade. That will hurt a lot. Okay, go ahead. I'm using 2 hands here to kind of clamp down, and I'm pointing them down towards my table, not this way so it flies into my neighbor. Okay, again, point down, clamp until you've broken the tiles apart. Start gluing onto my piece of wood. To do this, I'm going to take my Well-Bond glue, and I'm going to simply squeeze some glue onto the back of my, and go ahead and lay some on there. And then I'm going to take a popsicle stick, and I'm going to go ahead and spread the glue evenly throughout my whole tile that I'm laying down. Okay, this is serious glue. This isn't like Elmer's glue. It will really adhere this to your piece of wood. Okay, and then lightly press down and continue gluing your pieces. One thing to think about while you're doing this is you don't want to leave giant spaces and gaps. Okay? You want to leave small and tiny spaces between your tiles for the grout. All right? If you leave giant gaps, you're going to have giant gaps full of grout, and the grout is just not really attractive to look at. So really, you don't want all of your tiles to lay completely and butt up against each other completely. You do want some space, but tiny spaces between your tiles so that you can grout the tiny spaces, not giant gaps. So go ahead now, and we're going to fill in this entire panel with tile. Forgot to mention before you get started is some other things that you might want to think about besides just tiles. You can mosaic any sort of bead onto your panel. You can mosaic any type of button onto your tile. I have pieces of colored glass, like sea glass, that could be mosaicked on, and I also have a variety of different types of shells that could also be mosaicked onto your tile. So those are all things that you're going to want to think about. And another thought is that you can also make your own ceramic tiles. Ceramics is nothing more than clay. So as you think about this for a project, you could actually create your own ceramic tiles by cutting your own pieces out of clay and glazing them however you would like. So I've laid my tile all together. It's all laid out. Nothing is glued down. That is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it would be to glue as you go. So that's totally up to you how you would like to do that. I personally like to work by laying mine all out and then gluing, because once you start gluing, there's really no going back. So if it turns out that you start gluing and then you want to change the whole thing, that's not really a possibility. So you decide how you want to work, if you want to glue as you go or if you want to lay everything out. If you do go with the method of laying everything out and the class period ends, you're going to want to very carefully put this on your shelf, but you also are going to want to take a picture of it first, because the chances of this staying perfectly how you have it laid out right now is pretty slim. So take a picture of it so when you come in tomorrow and you're ready to glue, you can just reference your picture and kind of know the placement of all of your pieces of tile.